This video is going to be showing how to take a basic pinch form, build on it with coils, and then also begin to form it into some sort of a form like a bowl or a vase. This video is building on my students' previous knowledge of when we made simple pinch cups in Ceramics 1, but this time we're learning about coils and we're learning about shaping a form. So in both cases, we are going to begin with the balls of clay, just like we did with the pinch cups that we did earlier in the semester. Now, this is fresh clay, and I'm just giving it a couple of turns to help soften it a little bit. I want to start with a ball of clay about the size of my fist. And remember that when you have any creasing in that clay, go ahead and blend over that creasing. Creasing is always something that you want to blend over immediately, because if you ignore it and you keep on going, it might dry, and therefore the creases get bigger and deeper. This first one is going to be the vase form. So I'm going to pinch the base of it first, just like we did previously, and then pinch up the walls as I rotate. Now remember that you want to be sensitive to how thick the wall is. I want to keep it about finger or pinky thick. Now, if it gets a little wide, you're going to do what I'm doing here, and that is squeeze the walls together. And as you squeeze, you just blend over any of the creasing that you might see, because again, vertical creasing often happens when you squeeze it and make it skinnier. So just blend over creasing side to side. And there we go. So that's pretty even. Now I'm ready for the second one, and this one is going to be a little wider as the bowl. Again, pinch the base first, and then move up the walls. Remember that you always want the walls and the base to be an even thickness, because even thickness will help to promote even drying and help to prevent cracking. Now in the case of this one, you can see I'm making it a little bit wider because this is going to be a bowl. But again, in both cases, they are about as thick as a pinky. Now I'm going to roll some coils. The first step is squish your clay into a sausage shape. Then you're going to take the ends and twist them gently in opposite directions, and then roll with your entire hand. The whole idea is you want the entire coil to rotate as you're rolling it. And I want to try to get it thick like my thumb. So sausage shape, twist the ends opposite direction, roll using my whole hand, making sure that it has a full revolution. And these don't have to be particularly pretty, because when I apply them, I'm going to be blending them. So I'm not worried about some of the creasing that you see on there. But I like to work thick with my coils because it gives me more height and it goes a little faster. Now the prep that's necessary is scoring and slipping. So my students, we've talked about this before. Scoring is when you roughen up the surface. Slip is when you add watered down clay, or in this case we're just literally adding water. Now I'm going to put the scored surfaces together. Notice I scored both but slipped one. Now I cut the ends at an angle of that coil, and then I'm going to go ahead and score and slip the ends and kind of meld together the ends there, just blend it. Now I'm using a dry finger, my dry thumb, to blend the coil into the pot on both the exterior and the interior. The goal is, when blending, you should not see any sort of seam that should be visible where the coil was attached. It should be fully blended inside and outside. Now, if it started to get wide, bring it in again. Remember to just gently squeeze it in. You need to control the width as you go. You don't want to let it get out of hand, because if you get it too wide, it's going to be very difficult to bring it back in. So just control it as you go. Now I'm going to do a second coil on here, both scored, and again, one will be slipped. Then I'll place this on top and cut the ends again at a diagonal, score and slip the ends, and then I will blend together the ends with my dry finger, and then mush together, blend that coil into the pot itself. Now, before I start forming the shape, I'm going to go ahead and build the height. So this will be my final height, and notice how much thickness that coil provided. It gives you a lot of height. Like a big thick coil like that can give you 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to bring that in so it's a little bit more cylindrical, and I'll set that aside, and I'll form it into the shape in a minute. But again, keep squeezing it in and look for vertical creasing, because you have to blend over any vertical creasing as you go. If you ignore it, It gets deeper as it dries. Now for the bowl, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to squish my clay into a sausage shape to create the coil, and then gently twist the ends in an opposite direction, so it's like a drill bit, and then roll using my whole hand. Now you can see this one's even thicker. I just need it big enough to go around. And I'm going to go ahead and score both, slip one. Now notice I am kind of scoring down on the edges there too, not just on the rim, but I score on the inside and the outside a little bit, because when I push together that clay, it gives me a nice little scored area where it's going to come down. And there's my diagonal cut. And you don't have to do a diagonal cut, but I think it blends together more nicely, especially for my beginners, so it doesn't pop apart. Okay, again, dry thumb. You have to have the friction of a dry finger to do this. If you try to do it with wet fingers, it just slides all over the place and it doesn't really blend well. Now the inside is critical. Again, no evidence of any seam should ever be visible. If you can see a seam, that means it's not blended together well enough. And now I'm taking all that thickness of that enormous clay and I'm pitching it up, so I probably have like 2 more inches out of that. So you can see how starting with a pinch form and then coiling really gets you, a lot of progress. All right, so both of these are basically built. Now I'm going to do a little bit of preliminary cleaning. So for the bowl, I'm going to use one of those little cards that I made from the hotel room key. It's in the shape of the little tiny mud tool ribs. It works brilliantly. So notice when I rib, my other hand is on the outside of the wall, because you want to make sure that you're not going to collapse it. So if you're ribbing the outside, other hand's on the inside and vice versa. So here, I'm not really worried about getting it super clean. I'm just getting rid of the major denting, and I'm trying to go for symmetry. Look to make sure that it actually does look symmetrical as you're doing this, because it's easier to fix asymmetry while it's soft and plastic. Now, I'm going to go ahead and cut my rim. Remember how we make a jig by holding the needle tool up against like one of those wooden knives, something that it's not going to move on. I had my thumb pressed against it. If you hold it still, then you have a nice level edge, and I was able to cut that off while it was still plastic. And here I'm just thinning my edge just a teeny bit more. And that looks pretty good. I'm ready to get that leather hard. I'm going to turn it upside down on a wear board and allow it to dry. Now I'm going to start to form this into more of a vase instead of a cylinder. So here I want to create a neck. So I'm bringing and squeezing the neck in, but remember, anytime you squeeze in, you will get vertical creasing. So as I do this, I need to watch and I need to blend over any of the vertical creasing that's going to happen. Now for this next step, I'm going to use a paddle. Now a paddle will look weird, I know, but a paddle is designed to stretch the clay so it pulls it in the direction you want it to go. So what I'm going to do is stretch the clay downward. See, as I strike the pot, I'm pulling it downward. I'm never going straight in. I'm pulling it downward. So the bottom is starting to lengthen and it actually will stretch it. Now, by doing this, it also helps to prevent the walls from getting super thick. If I were to go straight inward, it would create a really thick wall. But here it's lengthened my base. Again, pulling down, never in, because I don't want to thicken my base up. Now I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of ribbing. Remember, build the height first, then begin to squeeze it into the shape, paddle it if you need to, and then you can start to just clean it up with the little rib. And be careful if you have like an inside angle like I do there at the neck. I'm going to bring in the neck just a little bit more. Again, as I bring it in, vertical creasing starts to happen, so I just kind of blend over that side to side. And I'm trying to keep it round on the inside with my finger there. So just bringing that neck in a little bit more. And again, look for symmetry. At this point, if you have it sticking out on one side, you can push it in, or you could get your finger in there and push it out, or a tool. Now this next bit is to remind you, when you paddle, always pull down, okay, and stretch the clay like I'm doing here. I'm going to show you an example of what not to do here. So you can see on this one, I am not stretching it downward and I'm going straight in. Now, the reason that you don't want to go straight in is because it's going to compact that clay and it's just going to make it way, way too thick. By going straight in, you're also not really narrowing it like you want to do it. By pulling it downward, you're going to achieve more of a narrowness that you want. So this is an example of what not to do, and I'm going to show you in a moment what the result is. Now this is one where I am doing it correctly. Notice how I'm pulling it down, and you can see that the bottom is actually lengthening. It is getting more narrow and it's pulling the extra clay down. It's not just taking it and compacting it and making the walls a little bit thicker down there. So always pull as you are trying to stretch it. And sorry, I was holding that out of the frame there a little bit. And now I'm going to show you a difference between the one on the left is the one where I compacted it and went straight in. The one on the right was the one where I lengthened it. So here we're going to do a little cross section so you can see the difference. So this is the one where it was compacted and it was straight in. And I want you to notice how thick the walls are going to be. The walls are way thicker than they should be. You can see that the clay has been really squished just because it just delivered all that energy straight in and it went inward. Now, in the case of this one, it's still thick because I still need to do the cleaning of it with the shredders, but it's not as thick. The walls themselves are not quite as thick because I was pulling and lengthening it down. Now the bottom is a little bit thick, but I can always take off some of the thickness there. So that just shows you the big difference in going straight in or pulling with the paddle. So make sure that you pull. And once your form is done in the plastic stage, you want to get it leather hard. My students will be flipping theirs upside down on a wear board. Once it's leather hard, I'm going to go ahead and start the cleaning process. Here I'm making the jig to cut off the rim of the bottle or vase. Now you could do this when it was plastic too. I'm using a knife, but of course you could use a shredder to bring it down to the right level. Now I'm going to round the interior with one of those wooden Kemper tools. That WT12 tool works really nice to kind of shave and carve a little bit on the inside. You're using the edge of it almost like it's a rib. And here now I'm going to try to get some symmetry on the neck of the bottle. And I'm since my interior was round, I'm making the exterior kind of match it. And now I'm just going to start the cleaning process. Now when it's leather hard, it should come off like cheese that's been grated. If it's gumming up, that might mean that you're not quite leather hard enough, so we might want to let it dry a little bit more. But here I'm doing the preliminary cleaning by removing denting, corners, taking off maybe a little bit of the thickness because these pots are kind of thick as pinch forms. You can bring down some of the thickness and we'll recycle all of that scrap. We'll put it in my scrap bucket so I can pug it. So as I do this, I want to concentrate on, again, trying to make sure that I don't have any flat spots, any dents, any corners, and I'm really trying to create a uniformity and symmetry to it. And now I'm ready to start on the bowl. I'm going to just get my debris out of the way there first. And when you're working on this, it's going to be similar to the way that we did the other pinch cups. I need to look at the bottom of it and make sure that it actually looks round and it looks like it's in the center. If you're having difficulty trying to figure out is your base round, you can use one of the circle templates that I have in the classroom. Set it on there and trace around it to make sure it's round. You don't want to have corners. You don't want your base to look off center. You don't want it to look wonky on the bottom. You want that to look clean and uniform and round. And so as you do that, just keep pulling around and that will help to prevent flat spots and help to keep it round. Now you can stand if you need to, because I was standing to get my head directly over the bottom of it to make sure that it was round. Now I'm going to do the top edge. I'm just making this a little faster, just making sure it's round. On the inside, I'm going to take that small baby rib, that one made from the hotel key again, really smoothing and making sure that the interior of that looks clean and round. Now this is the preliminary cleaning. I will allow that to dry a little bit more for final cleaning. So as I do this, I'm just making sure that it's level. Notice my eyes are down level with the edge because I don't want the bowl to be lopsided. So, and notice I keep cleaning the debris off the table because I don't want to set it in the debris. And I know that this is all review from when we did our first pinch bowls, but I'm just continuing to rib and refine and get rid of any denting. Once I've done that, I can use the little notched card for the edge as long as it's leather hard. Don't try the notched card if it's soft or you will gouge it. But you have to make sure that your edge is level and of even thickness before you do that. And now I'm just taking off some of the line that appeared when I did the notched card. Now I'm ready to really rib the exterior. Again, if you flip it upside down as you do it, try altering your direction of your strokes, whether it's diagonally, side to side, up and down. You want to get rid of all of the shredder marks while it's in this stage of kind of the leather hard / soft leather hard stage. And then we'll let it get a little bit drier for the final cleaning. And again, always use a hard scraper to get rid of the shredder marks, and then we'll go to a soft rib later. So here I'm just getting rid of the shredder marks with the scraper rib, the one that's made from the hotel key card. I'll show more later about how you can incorporate design into your cleaned forms, but the forms always, always, always have to be cleaned before you start your design, because once you start design, it's going to be really hard to clean it. So good luck.